bison coming down the road, and they have nowhere to go except right next to us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Notier's Frontiers Diaries.
In this episode, everything starts taking a turn for the worse. This is when bad things start to happen.
We're used to being rained on, and we've gone through some bad weather before, but yeah,
this was pretty extreme.
It's never favorable when that bad weather happens, just constant, being deluged on. Is that a word?
I'm not sure.
All right.
The previous day, we had a glorious time in Yellowstone. It was perfect weather. We had incredible experiences of revisiting the place where we got engaged 8 years ago.
Saw bears.
Yeah, we saw all sorts of wildlife.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful, wonderful time. Little did we know that it was going to be a very special, unique day, and we had high hopes for the future. But things don't necessarily go to plan.
Yeah, we had previously done the Northern Loop on a bright and sunny day, and it turns out that might have been the last bright and sunny day of the Northern Loop for, this season.
Yeah, we didn't realize how fortunate we were at the time. We had just had a great day. We went to the campground where we met up with Michele, who is the founder of Temple of Moto. I really want to introduce you guys to our dear friend, Michele.
Hello. Hello, how are you?
We would be joining the Temple of Moto tour that would be going through Yellowstone. It was a private tour with two customers, a couple, Mark and Erica. We met them. They were super great.
Very cool people.
We were very excited for the next day. The tour was going to begin. We camped that night.
So we pulled into the KOA.
The clouds were forming, and you could tell that the bright sunny day from the day before might not have a repeat.
Yeah.
Looking
at the weather forecast was like it would change every 6 hours or so, but
yeah, it's
looked
so
like
unpredictable.
Rain and then possibility of snow, but then rain only at night, but nice during the day.
Very random, and it was constantly changing, so we didn't really know what to expect.
Yeah.
So this is the first day of our motorcycle tour with Temple of Moto, and as you can see, it's a little bit rainy.
Yeah.
But we're still gonna pack up and go off to Yellowstone in the rain. I'm sure the animals will still be out, so hopefully we'll be able to see something, and today we might see some geysers.
We will. Geysers don't move in herds. They're old and faithful.
Old Faithful, ooh. But when we got ready that morning, we were getting everything all on the motorcycle for the day's ride through Yellowstone, and then it started to rain. We pretty much knew it was going to be raining for a while.
Yeah.
We didn't know how long exactly it was going to be raining for, and we couldn't have suspected what was going to come. But we did know this is going to be a substantial storm. One of the things we had to do this morning was, because our golden fleece got really wet and quite stinky, actually.
Really stinky.
Yeah, really, really stinky. We took them off, and now we're just riding on the bare KTM seats, which we never do because We have air hawks and, we go many miles. And so we tried to make it a little bit more comfortable. But this will be interesting for today.
And the good thing about the tour itself is Michaela had a truck that on really bad days, I mean, of course, we were on a motorcycle tour through Yellowstone.
And it was a private tour.
Yeah.
So Mark and Erica wisely chose to take a car that day into Yellowstone. Now, for Tim and I, though, first of all, we don't have a car.
Nope.
Second of all, we had just gotten all of this great new gear.
Yeah, we were, except for my gloves. The Klim did not have the gloves in stock.
We had some loopholes in our gear setup, but we really wanted to put it all to the test. Now, this is the first time that we've ever dealt with Gore-Tex.
Yep.
So we heard wonderful things about it, that it was really waterproof, but we wanted to put that to the test and see if that was truly a true statement or not. So even though it was looking really bad as far as the weather, high altitude, cold, rain, torrential downpour up in Yellowstone National Park, what a perfect way to test your gear.
And we're going to Alaska, and so if anything's going to fail, it should be at a point where, we can maybe revise our setup.
Exactly. Firehole Falls. So we headed into Yellowstone, and the first thing we went to go see was the Grand Prismatic pools. They are beautiful, colorful pools of hot, acidic and sulfuric waters, I believe.
It's like a bullseye pattern, if you will. A rainbow bullseye pattern, and it's absolutely beautiful. But on chilly, rainy days, the steam that comes off usually is this ghostly beauty to the different mineral deposits that make up these different colors. But when we entered, it was just walking through a cloud.
It was, very difficult to see what was really going on there because of all the rain.
And you can still see some of it. Yeah. And the main one is so big that you have to view it from afar anyway. But there are some smaller pools that you can see.
Oh my gosh. You're right, looks like buffalo.
I knew that my gloves that I had bought in Africa were not waterproof in any means. And I mean, they're just tunnels and channels into the rest of my being. And so,
Exactly. That was, I think, the real problem with the setup. The Gore-Tex worked perfectly.
Yeah.
We stayed completely dry underneath our new Gore-Tex jacket and pants.
And it was just this big cloud of mist that we're standing in, though.
Yeah, and it doesn't have a hood, though, right? Because you're on a motorcycle. Your motorcycle Gore-Tex waterproof jacket is perfect for when you have a helmet on.
Yeah.
But once you take that helmet off and you go walking into the rain, that's when there could be a problem if you don't have a hood to cover all that rain from just falling right down your neck and into your jacket. So I was able to put on my rain jacket with a hood.
You had a separate jacket.
Yeah, I had a separate jacket.
So the Gore-Tex shell is awesome when you're on a motorcycle and, you know, the elements are coming at you at a fairly front, you know, assault, if you will.
Yeah.
And we had thought about it before we left because we've had experience of being on the road. But when you're off of the bike, hanging around camp, and it might be raining, you know, I don't want to be in my Gore-Tex pants padded and my Gore-Tex jacket.
Exactly.
And so we actually got separate, smaller, non-armored Gore-Tex jacket and pants just so that we can, you know, we can walk around town or just be more functional. And then in worst extreme conditions, you know, you can wear the jacket as like a windbreaker / another barrier against the elements, and you have a hood. When we were walking around Yellowstone at the Grand Prismatic whatnot, you know, Marisa was all hooded up and was prepared.
Yeah.
But I did not have my hood on, and so I was getting a little bit, you know, because I'm not going to walk around with my helmet on. But
right.
So I am thankful that I learned a lesson to, you know, on extremely bad conditioned weather days where it's really obvious that I'm going to also be walking around, you know, bring my hooded jacket
because none of the gear failed us. The gear was
my
awesome.
gloves failed me.
It was our setup. Well, yeah, but those gloves were terrible.
That was not Klim. Yeah, that was.
But also the intelligence of our setup made a difference, whether we thought to put on the hooded rain jacket when hiking or not.
Yeah.
And then also your gloves were those horrible gloves from Africa that.
I mean, they're when you. Yeah, they were not ideal for sure, but I didn't have any other options.
Yeah.
It was pretty cold outside, and my fingers just became these, just almost, I had no more dexterity. It was awful. They were getting real cold, and there was just bleeding into my shirt that I had underneath, and it kept crawling up my arm of just this wetness.
Yeah, because when you're sitting on the motorcycle, the wind and rain is just pushing all that wetness up your sleeves, right?
Yeah, it was. I was not having a good day by mid-afternoon because my fingers were just not functional. Even
though the sights were gorgeous, it was difficult because of all the rain, and it was cold. But what is really interesting is when you're in such a volcanic area that has these huge wafts of hot steam coming off of the ground, and you're walking through that, it is a bit like walking through a bathtub. Yeah. Because it's raining.
Sauna.
Yeah, and then you're in this steam bath of, well, kind of stinky steam. It smells a bit like rotten eggs, you know, it's that sulfuric smell, but it just seeps all through your clothes, and you're wet no matter what. But it was kind of nice to have those hot wafts of steam, but then you walk out of that steam and you're sopping wet, and that cold weather seeps right into your bones. So we got pretty chilled just on a very short hike around.
Yeah, and then getting back on the bike, and we went to Old Faithful, and we got there right at when it had just erupted.
Which is not the time to get there. I think it erupts every 90 minutes
or so.
Yeah, so an hour and a half, and so we had to wait at least an hour for it to erupt.
Don't get us wrong, like riding through Yellowstone, rainy on a, you know, like it was still beautiful.
Yes,
like it's still, and you still see bison, and you know, it's absolutely fantastic. Just some of the drawbacks of being on a motorcycle are you're in those elements, which we again have been used to very, very long. But like I can't pull out my camera because it's raining. You know, my gloves had completely failed me, so. If it was an average day of us not being in Yellowstone, I would have totally stopped somewhere and said, you know, let's not continue anymore because my hands are frigid and this is just not ideal.
So at that point in time, we decided that for at least us two, we were going to cut the day a little bit short.
Yeah.
Those in the vehicle, Michaela, Mark, and Erica, they were having a great time. They still saw Old Faithful and did a bunch of other stuff. But for us, we decided to go back.
The rain was just not stopping.
No, the rain was not going to stop, and it was going to be at least an hour and a half to get back to West Yellowstone. So we headed off. this really cool experience happened. This is when I started to get the feeling that something was abnormal about all of this rain. The roads often in Yellowstone follow rivers. The river was super, super full. You could see it to the left, just reaching the banks. It was so, so full that the buffalo who wanted to travel from one valley to the next had to actually take the road. There's a couple bison coming down the road and they have nowhere to go except right next to us. They had no choice but to take the road.
And our travel of direction was kind of slowing down, but when I peeked around the car in front of me, I saw these 3 lumbering giants just, you know, I was like, Marissa, bring out the GoPro, because this is going to be cool.
One of the craziest things about it was everyone else is in a car, but we're obviously on a motorcycle, quite exposed.
Yeah.
And when you're in that situation, there's such a giant beast next to you. It's always a little nerve-wracking. But
and they look you in the eye, like they make eye contact.
And you're not supposed to make eye contact.
I didn't know that. You're telling me this now.
Yeah, you're actually, you know, when you have the helmet, you're supposed to have your visor down so that they can't see your eyes. Now, I didn't have my visor down because I couldn't see anything with my visor down. It was raining so hard. So I had it up, and I didn't think they were really going to look at me, but they looked right at us, right in the eye. And I had this sudden feeling of fear, but then it immediately went away because they gave me a look of almost like understanding because it was so wet and they were so sopping wet.
They're like, this sucks, doesn't it? And we're like, yeah, this kind of sucks.
It was a look of, oh yeah, you're in this too?
Yeah.
This sucks. Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. It was a connection.
What I felt bad for is everybody behind these 3 buffalo. It was just it was a traffic jam from, you know, West Yellowstone to LA.
They were going very slow.
And nobody, you know, there was one person who got to ride behind them and be like, "This is cool."
Yeah.
But the next 450 cars was like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, they have no idea what is causing this huge traffic jam. It must have taken them hours upon hours to get out of there. And it's just a one-way road. There's no like turn-offs. You're just stuck on that road.
Yeah.
So, but it was a very cool experience for us.
It was beautiful. Yeah, and then we got back to the campsite and we knew that it was going to be getting chilly that night.
Look at the campground.
Thank goodness we were at a KOA that had a laundry room because we dried all of our goodness. You know?
We were able to use the dryers, but the rain was not stopping. In fact, it was just getting harder and harder. And so we kind of reinforced the tent. This is our spot over here. We've had to reinforce it quite a bit because the tent was leaking a little bit. So we put one of our reflective tarps over the tent.
Our Nemo tent with the little the garage or the vestibule, like that's kind of a failure point that we've noticed that it'll leak through for no good reason. So I put a bonus tarp on there. But the winds were going. It was just rain. It was just
an insane amount of rain, and everything around was getting muddy.
It was like a mosh pit. It was like a Slayer concert underneath our tent, you know. And it was just.
This is inside our tent, and it's pretty muddy in here as well. We have like this outer area that we call the garage or the vestibule. And you can see all these worms everywhere. Every place I move, there's more worms. Just trying to escape all the water. It's a whole worm city here. I'm trying not to step on them.
And getting in and out with all our disgusting, muddy everything, it was just
It was really difficult because you have to go in through the garage part, and as you touch the top of it, it's very low. So as you touch the top of it, everything is getting wet that touches it, and it's just dripping all over, and there's mud all over the bottom. And then you have to go into your tent and hope to try to get everything dry in there. Here's the tent part, and we put that reflective tarp over it, but unfortunately our quilt, my favorite thing in the world besides Tim, is wet a little bit. Now there are dryers here, but it's a down quilt, so I don't know, should I dry it? I'm gonna see how damp it is. It's definitely damp, but hopefully it's not too damp on the inside. Now the laundry area with the dryers is open 24/7, so if we're just cold and wet and damp in the night and we feel like we can't do it anymore, we can just go into the shelter area of the laundry room and dry our quilt in the dryer, which I'm reluctant to do, but that will definitely help with making it dry and warm. We'll see.
I think I went out that evening.
I think it was that evening, yeah.
And I went out and bought new climb gloves that were like $150, and they were snowmobile gloves, but they were, so they're not
waterproof.
I was just like, I cannot go through this experience today because my fingers didn't work. I couldn't even take off my cardo or turn them off. My fingers weren't functional.
I mean, I looked at your hands and they looked like crusty and just really gross and clammy.
Yeah.
I just felt so bad for you. I'm like, that is number one priority right now, is to get waterproof gloves, because we cannot go out in the rain like that again.
And number two priority is a tent that doesn't drip on us, or we need to patch up with different tarps.
Yeah, these are serious things when we're going to Alaska and when it's that cold out. It was really cold.
Once
that
you get
night.
Wet and cold in the middle of nowhere, it's hard to get back on track.
It's really
when you're
bad.
wet and cold at a KOA on West Yellowstone,
you're gonna be okay.
You're gonna figure out a solution.
Yeah, but if you're in the middle of Alaska, it's gonna be very dangerous. So we knew that this was going to be a very good test, and we had to figure out our situation now before it turned dangerous later on. And we were dry throughout the night, thank goodness.
Yeah, for sure.
The next morning, when we woke up, everything was flooded. As you can see, our site, it's just muddy, but it's not flooded. But look at these sides.
Like submarine parking on all the campsites next to us. At first I was kind of upset that we got not upset, but like our campsite was kind of on a little bit of a slope, and I was like, that sucks. We're gonna have to put our heads up this way, and whatever, this, that, and other thing. But man, thank goodness for that slant, because everything ground level where it leveled out was just.
Looks like they're pumping water out of the camping area. I mean, we lucked out. I was so thankful when I looked around. Yes, we were in this pit of mud, but we weren't in pond Notier.
4 inches.
Yeah. We didn't have to take a canoe, to get out of our tent.
Indeed.
I was so thankful about that.
But then wisely, the tour wanted to do it in a vehicle again, and Marissa and I kindly checked out. We said, we are going to hang back today.
That's right.
Because, as much as I want to test out my new gloves, just a day of
cold and
wet riding without taking a bunch of pictures and all that.
Sunshine! It does exist. Look at this. They seem to be trying to pump all this water out. Hopefully it works. I'm just glad we didn't have one of these campsites. We turned out to be quite lucky with just the mud. That was a lot of rain. And I think it's going to continue, but I'm happy for this momentary instant of sun. And so Michele, Mark, and Erica headed off to go to Yellowstone that morning. And then later on we get a text, Yellowstone is closed.
Yeah.
And it has been closed ever since.
Yeah.
That rain was the rain that destroyed all those roads in Yellowstone.
It was
the
crazy.
road that we had just taken where we had seen that buffalo the day before was destroyed.
We did the northern loop, and we're in West Yellowstone, which is ironically west of Yellowstone. But, you know, that whole northern loop, yeah, there was a bunch of some natural disasters. The flooded roads took out, bridges and,
and whole sections of the roads. It destroyed sewer systems and campgrounds. And so, yeah, it was a real natural disaster. I knew that was a lot of rain.
Yeah.
So as you can see, they are draining some sites and pouring it into other sites. But now that the sun has come out, it's actually a lot better. I feel like things are drying up. People are getting much more cheerful. But the crazy news is they have closed Yellowstone. That's right. They closed it because I guess the gates were flooding, which I'm not surprised to hear.
I kept looking around. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, these people are unprepared for a little bit of rain. And then just the rain kept going and going, and they're bringing out like these pumps to like suck it into the sewer system. And I'm just like, what's going on here? And they're like, man, I've worked here for 20 years and I've never seen it this bad. And I was like, oh, really? Wow, this is crazy.
So everyone was in freak out mode. Yellowstone was closing. And then we got the report that it was going to snow all night long.
Awesome. We were like, man, it needs to stop raining. And then it was like, okay, I'll stop raining. Here's some snow. And it's like, ah.
So that will all be in our next episode. I hope you liked this one. If you did, please give us a big thumbs up and hit the subscribe button below. Ding, ding. And stay tuned to find out what happens next.
Stay safe, everybody.
Bye.
Peace.